Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't think I need a microphone, unless you think so, but I think we're good. So, I'm Justin Marquardt. This is my wife, Angie, and we are excited to be the hosts today.
She dressed way nicer than you.
That's what I was kind of thinking on our way over here.
But he has the technology, see,
Yeah,
they're
so
good partners.
I'm sorry we're a little bit late today. Trying to get it all figured out for, Clinton likes his technology to be a certain way, so I had to make sure we got it going. But anyways, we're excited about today. We have Julie and Mark Leonard. Pronounce that right. We're going to be talking to them a little bit about 20-somethings. And then Sam Alvarez is going to come up as well, and we're going to spend some time sort of doing an interview style with her about raising girls. So I'll be tuning in especially on that one. So if we could just start the morning off with a word of prayer. Father, thanks so much for the opportunity again today to gather together with this great group and learn today from Julie and Mark and Sam. God, I pray that we would leave today with some more knowledge and some more hope and peace as we learn about raising kids and doing it the way that you would want us to do. And please bless this time together. In your name, I pray. Amen. So I was asking Clinton, are there any special announcements today? And he said no. So, there's not anything special I need to announce. But we almost I'll just tell a quick story here before we hand things over to you guys. So, we almost voluntarily stepped down from our position of hosting today based on our experience. When was it? A week ago?
Yeah.
A week ago. So, this is encouragement for everybody. Like, we hired a babysitter for the first time ever. Usually it's the grandmas and the aunts and uncles that are watching our kids. We have 3 kids at home. Kobe's 7, Cozy is 3, and Layla's 5. So the first time we stepped out and we said, hey, let's not bother our family. Let's just hire a babysitter. And so everybody knows Sadie Sondag. Sweetest girl, you could ever imagine. And so she's like, yeah, of course I'll watch your kids, So we're all excited, and we're like, yeah, our kids are good, they should be fine. And so we go out, it was our anniversary, so we went out and we had dinner, and it's been about 4 hours out, I would say, right? 4 hours. We come back and we're trying to get the lowdown from Sadie on how the kids were. And she was kind of standoffish, like she wasn't...
Not standoffish.
Well, she was being super nice. She wasn't telling us the real story on what exactly happened here. And so I'm taking her home, and I get a text from Angie, and she said, hey, try to really get some detail on your way home. Like, how were the kids doing? And so I said, okay. So I thought about it. So I said, Sadie, can you kind of be totally honest with me? How was your experience tonight with our kids? Were they good, good, bad? And she's like, in the sweetest voice, I'd say it was pretty bad. So just totally honest, totally upfront. And so I decided to, dig in a little bit more on that. And I said, okay, so you say bad, but let's talk about scale of 1 to 10, okay? 10 being it was the greatest experience you've ever had. 5 being you'll never come back ever. And 1 being you wanted to just run out of the house immediately. And she said, I'd say about a 6. So she just barely wants to come back one more time. And so I prodded her one more time. And I said, Sadie, have you ever had a worse babysitting experience? And she kind of thought for a minute. And I was like, surely she has. So she thought for a minute, and then she said, no. I don't think I have. So, yeah, we had to have a conversation with the kids the next day, but And so we almost just, gave up our position as host today.
We were feeling super unqualified.
But that's just kind of how it is, like you just never, you can do things what you think is the right way, but it's hard and every day is a challenge. So I thought that was a fun story to share to kind of start the morning off. So if any of you have kids that ever want to babysit, it'll be the worst experience. So that's to start the day. So let's have Julie and Mark come on up here. And let me make sure this is still recording here. Okay, so we are good. So Julie and Mark, can you guys tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started? Like, how old your kids are, what your background is as a couple, as individuals, that sort of thing. Just give everybody a little context as far as who you are.
Do they want the mic?
Do you want the mic?
Not particularly.
Can you guys hear in the back?
Can you hear us okay?
I
Okay,
think so.
all right. Well, we moved to Indiana back in '87, so we've been here about 30 years. We've been married for 32.
Almost.
Almost, right. We had kids, about 6 years into our marriage, and we come from very loving families, nurtured both of us very well, and so we had a lot of good exempling of, parenting and that type of thing.
Our oldest is 26. He got married when he was almost 20. So we have a married 20-something. And our youngest is 24. And he's getting married in October. So kind of almost at the end of the whole parenting at home thing. We're almost for real empty nesters.
And so what were some of the early challenges with when you started to reach that 20-year-old type of phase, and how did God sort of help you guys navigate some of those hard times? How did you handle it as a married couple with your roles with father and mother together?
I think, you guys shared a great story. That's really, really cool. And it's going to be a great lesson for you guys down the road, and you'll laugh forever. For us, it was kind of we were thinking Joel would get married more in his middle 20s, and we weren't prepared for, gosh, this is what I want to do. This is the woman who I've fallen in love with, and want to take that next step. And so I know for me, my mind's, having to rush forward here and how to handle that transition. As we walked that moment of life with him, we had to kind of change gears, and it went from being, the parent of a teenager to parent of a young man, crossing that bridge of marriage and trying to encourage and do what we can. And sometimes that's a little rough road because you're still thinking you're the authoritarian, and you're not. So there was a couple bumps in the road, I think, in some of that transition. We loved the idea of having a daughter come into our life. We never had that before. Don't know how to raise a girl. Although we're getting some training with our granddaughter right now. But it was an interesting time, but it was a great time because Joel, who's our oldest, felt very open to talk to us. He's our macro kid. He wears things on his sleeve, and he would come to us and just, like this, challenge us. How are we going to face that conversation or that event in his life? So you had some great times with him during this.
Well, he was always very pushy. He was the one who would push all of our buttons all the time. So we were like, when he said he wanted to get married, I'm like, okay. Because it just felt like he didn't really have that maturity in his life yet. But, I'm sorry, I have some allergies, so I'm really froggy right now. So that was a concern for me, but he just continued to kind of show us that he was going to step up to the plate, and he did. I really think a lot of the button pushing was that's just him. And he didn't, I think he just did it for reaction. I really do. And it was like, probably the lesser we would react, the better. And that's hard for me because I'm kind of like him. And I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So, but, and then I would say Jacob was a more compliant kid. But yet, you didn't really know what was going on with him, too. He was more of a mystery because he didn't just tell you every thought process going on in his head, like what Joel did.
Yeah, Jacob learned well from his brother what not to do, because he liked the idea of having privilege in his life. And so, I mean, he's commented to us multiple times, I just learned from Joel and didn't do what you did.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so you kind of touched on it, but what was it like sort of having to navigate the boundary issue? So they're teenagers and, you know, this is the letter of the law. Now they get into their 20s where the boundaries have to shift a little bit as parents. And, you know, I saw it with my parents, you know, when I was going through my 20s. So how did you guys handle that where, you know, you can no longer just send them to their room, essentially, or ground them from going out with their friends. So how did you handle sort of the boundaries that come along with your kids getting into the 20s and mid-20s?
Well, I guess we'd have to answer for Jacob since he really couldn't parent Joel anymore at that point. I mean, you're parenting them, but they're not in your house. So with Jacob, he went to Ball State, so he was in and out of the house, home some weekends, home during the summer, and during, you know, breaks and stuff. And it was kind of an interesting process for us because it's like, how can, I mean, we knew we had to kind of ease up a little on rules because he basically had no rules while he was at college. I mean, nobody watching him anyways. So anything could have been going on, but yet, I mean, we were never really worried about him being a partier, and I think part of that is because we are not social drinkers even. So he never saw that in us. So we've not really seen that in our kids at all. So not everybody agrees with that, but I think it speaks volumes. Your kids are watching you, whether you do it or if you're doing it, and you know, being a social drinker, other things like that. Your kids are still watching you, and you may be telling them not to do that, but they're watching you. But anyways, they never really got any of that from us. So I don't really know how much of that Jacob got into at school. I would say probably not a lot, because he didn't miss classes, he was in all kinds of things where he had all these responsibilities, so I don't think he could have managed all that if he was getting into too much trouble. So, but anyways, when he would come home, it was, I mean, he still was very financially dependent on us, so I felt like we still had a lot of say. He still lives in our house, and we could still have hard conversations with him because of that. I felt like, you know, we even had to say where he went because he'd have to borrow our car still, you know.
Right.
So there's some power in when they're dependent on you, and as they get more and more independent, I think that's when you kind of really have to back off and let them make those decisions and trust that you've instilled it all in them already.
And what role has prayer played in that situation? You know, trying to back off, and as you're hoping they're making good decisions, I'm sure you're on your knees quite a bit praying for that.
Yeah, I remember the evening that we dropped him off at college. We both were a mess. We're both sobbing and crying. This is our baby gone from the house now, and we just said, Lord, you know, help him to be an influence no matter how small or big a circle of friends he gets. And one of the interesting things is that he enjoyed having conversation with us. Now, he didn't text us every day and say, "Oh, I'm so tired, I'm so sick of this place, I want to come home." But there was times where he would, email us, and he would, ask us this or that. And they're very innocuous type of questions, but still, it was that cool thing that it wasn't like, okay, I'm 18 years old, I'm in college, and mom and dad are back home in Fort Wayne, I'm going to do my own thing. He felt that, we wanted him to be able to go and take that next step. Sure. and experience life and understand what it was like to be out on your own. Making, he knew what his budget was, he knew what his boundaries were. Not having a car on campus made a big difference, because he just hung around at the halls and got to know people there and that type of thing. And the other cool thing that we had that kept that relationship going is when he came home, there was a couple times he came home with friends from school, but we had a lot of time to pick him up and take him home. In fact, I think both of us, both he and Julie and I, enjoyed that time because we had a little over an hour of car time, just being able to talk. It's not like we were grilling him, but we'd get on topics and conversations. And I think that respect and that trust, that relational thing just kept on going. So,
How did you establish that in the first, you know what I mean, like going into where he wanted to call you and wanted, not every day like you said, but like how did you build that up to get to that point, to be able to carry that through?
It was more spontaneous, wouldn't you think?
I think it just all starts, at the younger phase. I mean, they know they can trust you and, not to freak out about, although it's easy to freak out about big things they come to you with, but the more that you can control that freak out later when you're not watching, the more they know that, oh, okay, I can talk to her about this or I can talk to him about this. But I think a lot of it's just spending time with them, and they were in Christian school. I think they made a huge difference in their life. We're big proponents for that. So he went to Christian school his whole life, and then he goes to Ball State. We were just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But it was time for him to step up and see where he'd go with that. So, and we really didn't make any contact with him. And it's funny because his now fiance, I remember her saying her mom would call her multiple times every day. And it just drove her crazy. She says, I don't have time to miss my mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you don't call her back or anything? She said, no. Like, okay. But it just made me glad that, we didn't contact Jacob unless there was some need. We didn't say, hey, how's it going? We just never did that. So it was, and I don't know why, it wasn't really anything we talked about. We just didn't do it.
That's great. And so one of your sons is married now.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about the joys of seeing that happen and having a daughter-in-law now and just your role there in their lives as they're starting off their married life. How has that changed from prior, and just a little bit about the experience there?
Well, for Joel, and Mark Linville might be able to attest a little bit to this. Joel was kind of he was a challenge at times, and as up until that date. And so it was really interesting when he started to date Cindy seriously, his wife. You could just see that change in his attitude. He started to do things more responsibly, and not that he wasn't respectful, but you could see more of that respect. And then once he was married on his own, starting to face the challenges, okay, I've got rent, I've got house insurance, I've got, whatever it is, it's like, you could tell, you could see the burden kind of going on his shoulders, and he just really became a very responsible young man. It wasn't, you know, hey, I'm on my own, I'm, you know, doing my thing with my wife. It was, he wanted to make sure he pleased her. And that was the really cool change that we saw in him. I think it was always there.
That's what I was just gonna say. I think that responsibility was always there. He just being, not rebellious, but I think he just liked to push our buttons.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it.
If you have a strong-willed child, you all know what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would say it's been a huge blessing having a daughter-in-law. It was, at first she's very shy up front, and I think she's not as shy now. So it was a little hard to kind of connect at first, but I feel like we do really well now and talk about all kinds of things now.
That's awesome. And so, when I look at, you know, when I got married and, you know, trying to look at my dad and see how his relationship was changing with me, it almost seemed like we went from father to friend almost. You know, as we started to have kids and to, you know, be our own family together. I mean, he's still my dad, and I still rely on him for conversations and help. But it almost seemed like it was, you know, like we would want to go hang out with them and go out to dinner with them, and it's because that friendship kind of is starting to form because the boundaries are shifting a little bit. So that's really interesting, you guys. Now, of course, my dad will always still try to get back into dad mode, even though I'm 37 years old, and they'll make us.
He tells us to be careful walking down the stairs.
Yeah, be careful. drive careful on the way home. And
Sure.
now, hey, next week when you come over, we are doing a mandatory family talent show. And I think, come on, Dad, you know. This is, you know, but so that's kind of interesting, I think. So with how you guys were with your kids, do you see that as being a transformation as well that's occurring, or that will occur, or, you know, what do you see as far as that goes?
I think we've seen that a lot, especially lately with Jacob engaged and, you know, working full-time, you know, buying his first car, having to start paying for, you know, different things. You know, we're seeing him ask questions. It goes beyond, you know, can I go out with my friends? You know, and then we say, well, where are you going? You know, that type of thing. It's more of that conversational type of thing that you just alluded to with both guys.
Well, like family night, I mean, we get together every Sunday night. They're all here in town, so we see each other a lot, and I think that was really Joel's idea. He was like, well, why don't we get together, just plan on every Sunday night, we'll eat together and hang out. Okay. So that's what we do, and he's pretty firm on that. I mean, there's times when we couldn't do it because we've been out of town or whatever, and he's like, oh, okay.
You can
At
tell he's
times-
a little
At
disappointed.
times when he couldn't too, you know, because they
Right.
weren't around, but, and then when we are together, I mean, we're laughing the whole time, which is great. And, you know, the little ones, we have a 5-year-old granddaughter and a 3-year-old grandson. And they're like, Grandma, come play, or Daddy, come play. And we're like, no, we're talking right now. So it's like, you know, we really enjoy being around the table together and just
Right,
chatting.
right.
And the kids kind of just put up with it at that point.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, when I hear you guys talk, I think when my kids are in their 20s and are getting married, like, I definitely want to see them interact with us the way your kids are with you. So, what kind of advice? Yeah. Question first.
Question.
Yeah.
You said when you get together now, you're always laughing. Was it like that growing up too? Was there lots of
Yeah.
happy times and laughter?
Yeah, I remember when I was growing up, my dad didn't want a lot of craziness at the table. I mean, he was just kind of, that was more maybe the time, but it was like, you know, we're supposed to be laughing and going crazy at the table, but we never had that rule at our house. And I remember this tiny little kitchen table with the 2 boys and us, and we laughed so hard, we almost made ourselves sick sometimes. I don't know why. It's just, they're very humorous boys, and you never know what's going to come out of their mouth. That's part of it.
Sometimes we
And
had
it's
to.
still that way, and we're like, your daughter just heard you say that. You got to stop saying stuff like that, but then we
Yeah.
laugh, so.
We used to have a little jar, the potty mouth jar. You know, if somebody said stupid or shut up or but or something like that, then everybody
Or
had to
if
put
they burped
or
or
bird
farted.
or yeah, you know. So they had to throw a quarter in there, and so we were teasing because the little one, our 3-year-old, he tooted and said, "Hey Joel, you need to start bringing out that quarter jar now," you know, and we just started laughing about that. But you know, it's that respect that we've had in our family growing up. They've seen it modeled. When we get together with extended family, we're just, I mean, talk about all of the potty mouth dog. Yeah, but we joke and we
It's his
start
family,
to,
not mine.
yeah, my family. we look at our watch and say, okay, how long is it going to take? And usually we're rolling.
Within 10
right?
minutes, somebody said something that's probably not very appropriate.
Yeah, but it brings laughter and it brings joy, and we're able to communicate. You know, I joke with my sister and brother and say, you know, we might not see each other for 4 months, but we're like a soap opera. You get together and you know what's happening within a matter of minutes. You know, so that that relational type of thing is really key.
Yeah.
That we wanted to convey to our
And it
guys.
just starts from the beginning.
Yeah.
I said the Christian school thing for 2 reasons, because we had to drive them to school, so we had all that dashboard time. And that was huge. I mean, I remember discussions about different kinds of music and, you know, friends and what was going on. And, you know, because when you get home, you're off doing your own thing.
Right.
But that was one-on-one time. And even now with Jacob, he's hardly ever home. I mean, he comes home usually after we go to bed. And the rule is, not really a rule, but I mean, because he's pretty financially independent right now, and he's getting married in 3 months, so, well, 5 months. You know, I want to know that you are at home in your bed. You know, you're not, that's the rule. And you should be at church, you know, on Sunday, and he is. He's over there right now. And he wants to be there. I don't have to make him go. He just does it, which is great.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just kind of different when, you know, it's like, I go to bed and I know he's not there yet, but he's always there in the morning. Although sometimes he's not, because now he and his brother go and work out every morning, so they're gone before I even get up. And it's like, do you guys ever sleep? So, anyways.
So, you know, as we kind of wrap up here, what I was alluding to was similar to what was asked over here. So, a lot of us have young kids that we're raising now. So, what advice would you put in the ground and stake on it right now for the younger families that are bringing kids up, who at the end of the day, when our kids are 20, 30 years old, we want to see that same type of relationship that you guys have with yours. What type of advice would you give to the group?
Know that you're going to make mistakes along the way. I know that's been conveyed before in conversations in this classroom. You know, looking back at when they were born and looking in the bags you get from Lutheran or Parkview, you're looking, okay, how do you raise this kid? You know, there's no book in there that says this is how you do it, you know, but really the Bible has been a good guide for us, you know. And then trusted friends. We can't do it alone. We came to Fort Wayne, didn't know a soul. You know, we got connected through church, and you know, we had Sherbans as an example that we used to do a lot with, and a couple other people that we worked with at Brotherhood, and you know, just being able to trust in them, you know, to help us out. We didn't have family here. But we tried to make family as available to our boys. And again, it's not, you know, Joel, do your own thing, Jacob, do your own thing, Mom and Dad do our own thing. We all tried to do it together. We gave them space. We wanted them to be individuals. Those who know Joel or don't know Joel, he was in a screamer band, didn't understand the whole concept at all. But we loved him through it. We learned to understand more of it.
We even went to some shows.
We went to Grand Rapids to go see him at CDYC one time. So supporting your kids, I guess, is that big thing. You know, we were pretty faithful about going to, choir or ISMA concerts and programs and, sports. Even art. Joel and Jacob both have flair for some creative art and went to a couple competitions they were at. We didn't want to be helicopter parents, and we didn't even know the term back in the day. But we still wanted to be involved. I don't care if you're 80, you're still probably going to have some involvement with your kids. And really having that relationship with your kids, that respect between both parent and children, it's vital.
My answer to that would be, kids usually want to talk, especially in the teenage years, like at midnight.
And she did the best at that.
And we would pass out.
I was gone.
He was
I was asleep.
But you got to be available at that time. And so I don't know why, but I've heard other people say that too, that kids will come home from somewhere and suddenly they're spilling their guts and wanting to talk to you, and it's midnight. You got to get up and go to work the next day. But I mean, I know I spent a lot of time doing that, making myself stay awake most of the time. It was pretty riveting, but anyways, I think it's really important to know that they know that you're going to be there to talk to them no matter what time it is.
And listen, we don't have to just, I don't think you should do that, be real hard-nosed at them. There's sometimes that we had to pull them back a little bit, but they wanted to share, and they wanted to convey stuff to us. And so we had to be respectful of that time, so that they knew they had that open communication with us.
Great. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's helped.
Thank you. Okay, I think Sam is next, so if you want to come on up, and I don't know if you want to join us up here now. There's 3 chairs for us, so that'd be great. Okay, wow, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing. And so Sam Alvarez is on the hot seat now. We're going to drill her with 20 questions. So she's here today to talk a little bit about raising girls. Okay, and so before we get started, can you just tell a little bit about you and Izzy, how long you guys have been married, how you met, kind of your story in a nutshell?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're approaching 8 years being married, and we met here at church, actually, when I was in the youth group. And so we've known each other for quite some time. And there was a period where we dated, and then I left for college, and when I was away at college, I found out that I was pregnant. And so then I came back home, and we weren't together at the time. So that was kind of a hard part in our story. And what a lot of people don't know that, and don't know that for the first year of having our daughter, he and I didn't speak. But he was always involved with her, so he was always a great, great dad. And then when she was a year, then we ended up getting engaged and repaired our relationship. Well, first we repaired our relationship, then we got engaged, and have been married ever since. So we have a 9-year-old, a soon-to-be 7-year-old in a couple days, and a 1-year-old. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Are they all girls?
Yeah, they're all girls.
All right.
Yeah.
All girls. How's Izzy doing?
Oh, he's doing better than me, actually.
Yeah. So I was going to say, tell us a little bit about Izzy's role in raising girls as well.
Well, I think part of having all girls and seeing Izzy be with them is it makes me reflect on my relationship with my dad, and kind of highlights the spots where I felt like he wasn't there. And so seeing my husband step into every role possible with the kids is like mind-blowing to me, because my dad didn't do that. And so Izzy's role with the girls is really sweet. He is very attentive and he affirms them and all kinds of stuff. You know, everything that a little girl wants to hear from their dad, he tells them. But then he also, because he doesn't have voice, he wrestles with them, and then that's when I have to step in and say, all right, somebody's going to end up crying, which they always do.
Okay. So, and then tell us just a couple things that Izzy will do as the dad that really just make them light up as girls.
So something I've noticed that he does is, I think affirming people can be difficult sometimes because if it's just not in your nature. But it's easier to affirm someone like when they're doing something in the moment, you know, presently, to say, hey, you're doing a great job. But what I've noticed with my husband is that he does that randomly, which I feel like takes a little bit more attention, but also it means more sometimes. And so the kids will just kind of be doing their own thing, and I don't know, like, they love to cut paper in tiny pieces all over the floor. I don't understand. But so they'll be doing something random like that, and he'll just say, hey, come here. You know you're the best kid that I've ever known, or something like that. And they'll just like huge cheesy smiles where their eyes look like this, you know. It's really, really cute. And so that I feel like that's something that I've noticed he does really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then so talk a little bit about your role in mothering the girls and what you've seen are effective, you know, practices at loving them and disciplining and all those kind of things from a mother's perspective.
So I think my role is different in the sense that they identify with me as female, you know, as another female, and so I think they pay special attention to how I interact with Izzy and how I view like myself. And so I think my role as mom is different from dad's because I have to be extra careful with a lot of things that I say or my attitude or my temper, and because I want them to be like kind and gentle, patient young ladies, and so I try. It normally starts out okay in the morning, but you know, as the day goes on, yeah. So I try and model those things to the best of my ability. But for me, I don't really feel like that was modeled so well. So in that, I see the importance also.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some things that you've taken from your mom that have shaped how you're raising your girls? Good, bad, and you know, anything.
Okay, so my parents have a different parenting style in every way possible. So I think Izzy and I, while we respect the things that they do, because I have a 4-year-old little brother, and so it's kind of weird being 25 years apart from him because I see them parenting like a peer.
Mm-hmm.
I would see a peer parent. And so there's just a lot of things that they've done with me and that they're doing with my brother that Izzy and I just want to do differently. We are really big with trying to be intentional. That's huge with us. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming because we focus so much on being intentional that we miss out on some organic things, I think. But, so, yeah, I'd say we're trying to do things a lot differently than my parents.
Yeah. And so, in a daily situation or weekly or whatever the case may be, what are some practical things you're doing with your girls to point them towards Scripture and to integrate your guys' relationship with our Savior with them?
So Izzy bought this little devotional for kids that the parents do, like they read with the kids, and it's really hard doing things like that day to day with the kids because it just gets so busy, you know, with school and breakfast and cleanup and blah, blah, blah. And so for a while we were trying to do that every morning during breakfast, and that was helpful. And we've fallen away from doing that as regularly, but I will say that our conversations are always kind of in that vicinity of the girls are asking about scripture, and this is just their own minds that they just want to know. And so the other day in the car, they were talking to Dad about a certain Bible story, and he was telling it to them. And he loves telling Bible stories to kids, and he gets really like animated and this big guy and then, you know, and so they're really drawn in. And so then my oldest, my 9-year-old, afterwards, she said, "Mom, I have a great idea. This summer, every Monday, I want Dad to tell us a Bible verse, and then on Friday you test us on it." I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll do that, yeah."
Yeah.
So, so some things are purposeful, you know, the devotions, and we haven't done them regularly. We've just kind of been, "Oh yeah, I forgot we were trying to do this, so let's do it right now." And then other times it just happens in conversation and in the car time. You know, we drive our kids to school too for that purpose, because I want to have, like, sorry kids, you're stuck in this area with me right now, and no, I won't turn the radio on. Yeah.
That's great. And with girls, I think the way you and Izzy are around each other will probably shape them a lot. So in terms of, you know, how does the way Izzy treats you in front of them or affirms you or encourages you, have you seen that impact on your girls, or, you know, what do you think that impact will be?
Well, first of all, we love grossing our kids out with affection. So, and it's funny because they're getting to the age now where they notice it, like they notice if we're kissing, and so they'll be very dramatic about it, like, gross, are you done yet? And it's really funny. So our hope is that they see Daddy pursuing Mom, and it becomes sweet to them, you know, when they're old enough to realize that it's good. So there's that, but then also the way that we communicate with each other, how ever since we got married, we have always been very strong with united front. Like, we will not be divided by these kids, you know, and they try, but then they get in trouble for it. So he's sweet to me, affirming, affectionate, and he's a teammate. And so I think as they watch all of those things, I've seen that come out in them. And so my oldest especially, she's a little more in tune with things than my 7-year-old. And so we have to be specifically careful around her because she notices everything. And so I've noticed, though, that she picks up those good qualities from her dad of affirmation and affection, and she'll just come over and hug me and say, you know, I just want to give you a hug, or she'll come up to me and say, Mom, I just wanted to tell you that you're doing a really good job eating healthy today, or something like that. She just notices things about me that, you know, I'm not thinking that she would, and she'll affirm me the way that she sees her dad.
That's interesting because I work with a lady and she has a son and he's like 18 or in that high school age, and he'll just come up and hug her. Like, he's not grossed out by his mom, he's not, and I'm like, how do you do that? Because when my kids are that way, I want them like wanting to be affectionate toward me. And she said the same thing. Her husband, how he treats her, is modeling that for her kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's super neat and something that, that I hope that we can have with our kids too. Yeah.
So you're saying I should kiss you a lot more often?
Well, I'm just saying that. That I want that, you know, like they just had such great open communication with their kids, and just how they really watch and how that mutual respect is just so important. You know, it's just a good affirmation, I think, for what I want. I mean, I'm sure you want to for our kids.
We were coming in today, and Sadie and I both stopped at the door, and we looked around, and Kate and Robbie weren't there. We were waiting for you to open the door for us. And we looked at each other and said, oh, we have to open our own yard. And that's something that Robbie has modeled today, and Kay has done, and I walked in and Sadie, I looked at her and I said, you know, if you ever go on a date and a boy doesn't open the door for you, she goes, I won't go out with you. So it's the modeling of little things, even like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and another thing, just to talk up Izzy, which I don't think he really needs it because he's a pretty good example of that himself, but you know, he takes the girls on dates regularly, and it gets, well, let me not say regularly because it's not like once a month or anything, because that has been really hard for our family to nail down, and it gets expensive with 3 girls. Well, 4, because, you know, I count. And I might be a little more expensive. But he takes them on dates, and that's another thing that they light up with. You know, when he says, I can't wait to take you on a date. Like, he says that to them a lot, and they get really excited about it, but he follows through. And I think that is super important, because they get so excited, it's equally important to make sure you do it. And even if that just means stopping at Starbucks for a little, they have like little kids' coffees or hot chocolate or something, and spending $5 for the 2 of you to sit and have a coffee for 30 minutes. You know, he does that with them as often as he can, and spends time kind of courting them in that way, and it's really cute because he'll come back and tell me about the conversations, and then they come home and they tell their sister about it, and then the sister gets jealous, and he's like, I'm going to take you on a date too, don't worry, and so, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, and I can tell from experience that the girls do light up when the dads are pursuing them
Yeah.
to that end. I can just remember, and I don't do it nearly enough, but there was one week where I told Layla I was gonna take her out on a coffee date. Okay, she's my 5-year-old, and I didn't think much of it, you know. And so later that day, I get text messages from a bunch of people at school saying, you know, I hear you're going on a coffee date with your daughter. So she was just telling everybody.
And by coffee, it's the strawberry frappuccino.
Yeah, so I get some coffee, she gets a strawberry drink, and we just hang out. But she was telling everybody about it. You know, and that, to me, that was kind of eye-opening. You know, I hadn't thought about it much, besides just saying I'm going to take my girl out, you know. So I can definitely attest to that. So kind of wrapping up here, I know there's probably tons of advice you could give for people raising girls, but you know, if you could pick 2 or 3 of sort of these things are things I've noticed that I want to leave with the group today, if you could share that with the group.
So you guys talked about feeling unqualified today. I also feel unqualified because when it comes to being with girls, they tend to be super sensitive, and I tend to not be sensitive. And so something I'm really trying to lean into since day one is having compassion towards their emotions, because it's so emotional all the time. And my tendency is to say, "You're fine, just stop." And I think that's hurtful. Well, I know it's hurtful for them. And so having all girls, I try really hard, and I do it wrong all the time, and then I have to stop and apologize later on. But I try to enter into those emotions with them and talk them through it, because I think as women, you know, we feel all kinds of stuff, and sometimes we just don't know how to express it other than crying or anger or attitude. And so I fail at this a lot, but I try and make a point to teach them how to express their emotions in other ways that are a better way to communicate how you're feeling instead of just getting mad or crying. But another thing is how they present themselves. I think especially as time goes on and it feels like little things are chipping away that were once inappropriate that are now appropriate. And it just seems like as the years go on, something else becomes acceptable that I don't think should be acceptable. And so Izzy and I try and really focus with our girls on, those shorts are too short for you, you need to go change. Or they really always want bikini bathing suits, which are fine and cute on kids and stuff. Just And I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm saying in our household, we tell our kids, you can't show that much skin. It doesn't matter how old you are. You save that for your husband. And so they get mad at us with that, but I feel like something small like that might speak more volume in the future with them, just because things are becoming more lenient. And I, of course, have to be an example to that. I didn't grow up with those boundaries at all, so I think for some people that knew me when I was a teenager here, you know, it's a little embarrassing. But I've come a long way, and I tell the girls all the time, modest is hottest. You don't need to show skin to be beautiful. And so I think for having daughters, that's super important to be that example as a woman, and not feel like you have to flaunt, but to save some stuff for your husband, you know, and just teaching that at an early age, because everywhere else around them is going to tell them the exact opposite thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think those are the two biggest things, just addressing emotions and addressing body image and how you present yourself to everyone else.
Which is something I wanted to ask how you handle, because I don't know, as a mom who is health conscious, you know what I mean, but wants to model it appropriately to her daughters, where they're not like
Obsessive.
yeah, like how do you model that to where you're promoting health but not a cultural view of what beauty is?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what are your takeaways with that?
So my kids have kind of been dealt a rough card with being chubby. Just between Izzy and I, like, we're not the kind of people that can just eat whatever we want and be fit. And we really have to work hard in our family for that. And so one thing I've tried to teach my kids is it's not about what you look like, it's about how you feel. And so, you know, what we're starting to deal with as a 9-year-old, kids calling my oldest daughter like chubby, or laughing at her, or saying, you know, certain things, and it's heartbreaking. And so I try and talk to her about, she came home from school one day and said she wanted to go on a diet. And I had to sit down and talk with her about, that's not the way to do it. Like, you can't, this isn't something that you just fix like that. You know, it's okay if you want to have healthy balance. And that's one thing I always reiterate with her, is it's about balance. If you want to be healthy, you eat your fresh fruits and vegetables, but if you want ice cream, then yes, you have that too, as long as you manage an active lifestyle as well. And so me having to model that has been difficult, because I want to be all about one thing or the other thing. And so, like I said, Selena, she's always watching me, and my job is where I work at the Y teaching weightlifting classes. And so I think that's kind of part of it, where she sees mom doing something as a lifestyle, and she wants it to be 100% about that too. And so I like yesterday we had ice cream, and she asked me about that, like, how are you able to eat ice cream, but if you're trying to be healthy? And I just tell her, because it's about balance. You know, you don't have to deprive yourself. And so anyway, all that to say, I have to focus on not making my entire life and everything I talk about that in front of her, especially.
Yeah.
But we do treat ourselves. We do have soda every once in a while, and candy, and but I also make sure that they have a vegetable, you know, with every meal. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess just balance is the thing that I've tried to focus on with her, because she is noticing it.
Yeah, and it's super hard, and you don't want that physical aspect to be the influence, but the health part of it. But sometimes they cross the same path in how you get, you know what I mean? And you don't want to encourage one the wrong way. And I don't know, it's just hard with all the imagery out there that they're going to face, I feel like, and how to
and I think
exactly.
And the imagery is huge. I think that ties into dressing appropriately, because obviously women who are on like posters in their lingerie are showing fake images of themselves because they're touched up, and so I try and have those honest conversations with my kids, and I don't want to candy coat things about my struggles as growing up eating fast food all the time, and I used to drink like 8 cans of soda a day. You know, that was just, my parents didn't put boundaries on that, and so I just have really honest conversations about Selena, about how hard it's been for me as a woman to learn to live a different lifestyle, and how I want her to just have that instilled. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, it is group discussion time, so does everybody know the number to text to get your questions? Because I kind of forget, I think it's
It's in the email.
494949, I think is what it is.
What do you text to it?
Hold on. Sorry, Clinton.
It was in the email.
Oh, you know what? I think he texted.
It's talk.
Talk?
Yeah.
All right, so text talk to 494949, and then just kind of break into groups, and there's 3 discussion questions that we'll be reviewing today.
There it is.
Yeah. Text talk